So hello, welcome. My name is Susan and I'm here on behalf of the Brave Foundation. Unfortunately, Bernadette Black couldn't be here today. She actually was nominated for Telstra Businesswoman of the Year, and so she was at the award ceremony last night and she actually won the overall prize, so it was very exciting. So yeah, so she's doing media things today and so she wasn't able to be here, but she sent me along. I'm feeling very nervous, so I do apologise if I talk really fast and we finish really early. But yeah, but hopefully you'll enjoy the presentation. So the Brave Foundation is a not-for-profit organisation that aims to build a village of support and acceptance around anyone facing teenage pregnancy or parenthood, with resources, referrals and education opportunities to facilitate happy, healthy and skilled families over time. So we're just going to watch a couple of videos. Hopefully they'll play for us. And so I'm just going to show you the story about, this is Bernadette's story, and yeah, of being a teenage mum. So it goes for a little while.
I'd heard about girls that had fallen pregnant, and actually when I was in year 9 I'd heard about a girl in year 11 that had fallen pregnant, and truly I thought her life was over, and it doesn't make me feel really good now, but sort of went into judgment mode like everyone else in the school did. And so for me, like I said, in a Catholic family, you know, this was my first boyfriend, first time, you know, we thought we were being safe, and I found out that I was pregnant. I just felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I, you know, had this positive test, and I remembered putting the lid on it. I put it into my surf bag, went out and saw Dave, and he knew because I was crying. I just couldn't even talk that, you know, what the result was. And he just put his arm around me and sort of shuffled me my hair and said, "It's your body and it's your decision." And then the next minute Wendy's working and I'm making Winky Dink ice cream cones and handing them to a child, and the next I'm looking at him thinking, oh my goodness, he could be a father. Probably the best way I can describe it is I wanted yesterday back. This thing that had happened to me was way too big than I could ever comprehend in my 16-year-old brain, and the ramifications of telling mum and dad, and Dave's mum and dad, were just absolutely petrifying. My dad knew something was up with me. He came into my bedroom, he didn't sit down. He had this grey complexion, and he, you know, just looked at me and in a grated tone said, "Sweet, what's the matter?" Not like my mum, I couldn't look at my dad. I knew that if I was looking at my dad that he would know what I'd done with the boy. This was way too big. And so I just looked at the ground and said it quicker than I thought I ever could, and hoped he didn't hear it, and just said, Dad and I now I'm pregnant. Then literally the next thing we heard was the bedroom door slam, hallway door slam, front door slam, and then we heard this almighty scream in the middle of the main road of the street of where we lived. My 16-year-old daughter's had sex and now she's pregnant. I still can't believe he actually did that. I'd heard about these girls, and here it was me. and how I was ever going to begin to tell people. I didn't know at all, and I kept it very much to myself. I did go when everyone seemed to be angry. Mum was sick, and my boyfriend's mum and dad, they were really upset. I didn't know what to do, and I was just looking at everyone thinking my decisions have caused this devastation. And I remember telling my boyfriend's parents, it was like walking into a funeral. Everyone was crying, and I felt the heaviness of this. And I knew I needed to speak to someone because I had no hope at that point. And that person was a teacher called Mr. Shield. And today I still don't know why I went in to see Mr. Shield. At the time, at 16, I thought he was this grumpy 120-year-old man that had a comb over, really strict. But for some reason, I had this gut intuition, and that was to go and knock on his door. And so he had me come in and said to me, "Bernadette, what's the matter?" And I told him I'd met a boy from a state school and, you know, everything that had happened, and I was pregnant. And he just stopped the conversation, and he just took my hands and stared at me and literally eyeballed me and just said, "Bernadette Kennedy," which is my maiden name, "the journey might be different now, but the destination can stay the same." At that point, honestly, I was like, "You're not screaming this out to the rest of the school. You're not crying. You're not sick." And then he said it to me again, "The journey might be different now, but the destination can stay the same." And truly, without those words, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. When they placed him in my arms, I looked at him and, you know, besides thinking that he didn't look like the babies on the TV ads, I just thought to myself, I want him to have the gift of the teenage life that I am actually giving up for him right now. And it felt quite amazing. I did fall in love to an extent, but the feeling of my responsibility that I had to care for him, that this was my job, was something that I was never prepared for. You know, the journey will be different, but the destination, meaning what you wanted to do before you came across this unplanned pregnancy, you can still get there. It'll be different to how you planned it. The other thing that I would say is that get people around you. You know, your real friends, they don't tell you what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear. I had some friends that were incredibly honest with me at very difficult times when I was breaking up with Dame's dad, and they were able to tell me the things that actually would shape my life. And so if you don't have friends in your life that are telling you good things for your future, then really find people and bring them in, or just find one safe place, one Mr. Shield, one person outside of your immediate environment that can take you towards where you know that you can go.
One more.
At that time, I made 3 promises. The first was to be a good mum. I couldn't put a grade on it. I wasn't a maternal girl, I'd hardly held a baby actually, so I thought if the first promise was to be a good mum, then maybe I could aim for that. The second promise was to finish my education. Again, I didn't know how I was going to do that either. I didn't know what opportunities were out there for me now. And the third promise was to write a book, a pamphlet, or just something that if I did those first 2, that could help other people realise that they could have a good outcome. The first promise was to be a good mum. I have 3 amazing children and love being a mum to them, obviously with an incredible husband to help me on that journey. Damien, our eldest, is in early adulthood, he's in his early 20s. Our daughter Bailey is a teenager, and our son Flynn is coming into being a teenager, and they're just incredible. You've got to ask them on a good day whether I'm a good mum or not. But no, they're absolutely great. And I went on to become the Mother of the Year for Australia, something that really the amazing part of that was my son nominating me. That was the big win out of that, beyond any accolade. So that's the first promise. The second promise was to finish my education. You know, I finished my nursing, first of all, my year 11 and year 12. My nursing, did a graduate diploma in nursing as well, and have continued to do other studies in business that have helped me create Brave Foundation, the other roles that I'm on. And the third promise was to write a book or pamphlet or something, and Brave Little Bear, my story, was written in 2009 and is what actually created Brave Foundation. So it's quite amazing. It's about time to write another 3 promises, I think.
So that was Bernie, but now I'm going to tell you about my story. Can you see me if I move over here? There we go, so you can see the screen. So I met my partner Lachlan, this lovely looking man here, in 2012. We actually met on a cruise around New Zealand, which is a bit romantic, isn't it? But at the time he was living in New South Wales and I was living here in Launceston, and we thought, oh, we'll try and do a bit of long distance and see how we go. And so it went all right. Locke was finishing grade 12 and I was in grade 10 at the time. And in the summer, I went up to visit him in Port Macquarie because that's where he was living. And I fell pregnant. And I came home, and I didn't know at the time when I came home. And Locke was actually moving down here to go to uni the following year. So he came back, and it was a couple of days before my 17th birthday, and I took a test and I was pregnant. And so I just remember at that time not really knowing what to do and just sort of, you know, like Bernadette said, go back to yesterday. It was really scary. It was really scary. And actually on my 17th birthday, it was a school day, and I was booked in to go and have a dating scan because I didn't know how far along I was. And so my mum said to me, yeah, you've got to take your school uniform off. You can't wear school uniform. They can't know that you go to school. You know, take your school uniform off. So I took my uniform off and off I went to my dating scan on my birthday, but I insisted on wearing my big happy birthday badge. I'll at least take that one. So then from there it was just a roller coaster of emotions, and the first thing I did was, after telling my parents, was going to my school. And I came from a good family and I went to quite a good school, and I went to them and I said, you know, I'm pregnant. If I can't finish school here at this school, because I don't want to move schools, then I'm not having this baby. And so I suppose it's a little bit of blackmail on my behalf, but I didn't want to have to try and battle with making new friends and fitting in again and new teachers and all of those sorts of things when I was trying to raise a child at the same time. And luckily for me, my school was really supportive of my situation, and they tried their very best to do what they could for me at the time. And they helped me with flexible learning plans, and I was able to go home a lot more often and have a special space for me at school where I could go at recess or lunchtime if I needed to lay down or put my feet up or just have some time out for myself. And so they were really fantastic, and I was really lucky. And then after that, I spent about 5 weeks deliberating with myself whether I was going to have this baby. And adoption was never an option for me because I knew I couldn't deal with that. But I thought, you know, I could have an abortion or I could have this child. How much would I regret it in the future? So I thought to myself, well, you know, I don't want to live a life of what ifs. You know, thinking, oh, well, what if that child was here now? You know, I'm doing all right. Maybe I could have had the child, and I didn't want to go through life thinking about things like that. So I made the tough decision to have the baby, and I had full support from my family and Locke, and I was in a really good position. I was very lucky, and I still, to this day, I thank my family, you know, for being so supportive, because I wouldn't be, you know, here, and I wouldn't be talking to you today if it wasn't for them. So the next hurdle I had to overcome was actually telling the wider community that I was pregnant and my friends, my immediate friends at school. So when I was 12 weeks pregnant, I got a small group of friends together and I sat them down with the school counsellor and told them I was pregnant. Now, I thought these friends were close friends of mine and I thought I could trust them. But unfortunately, some of them decided it would be a really great idea to go around and start telling people in school. So my true close friends tried really hard to hide it from me that other people were finding out and that rumours were being started. And, rumours were coming out that weren't even completely anywhere near from the truth. And I was hearing these stories secondhand, and then I was hearing, someone had heard from someone who heard from someone who'd heard from someone, and it just goes on, and you get these massive long rumours that were coming out, and I couldn't deal with it. I was pregnant, and I was grumpy, and I just wanted to get on with life and get on with school and get on with growing a baby inside my body and not have to worry about everybody else and what everyone thought of me. So I went to the school and I said, I want to hold a meeting and I want to tell everyone that I'm pregnant. And they didn't really like the idea of that, as you can imagine, but they agreed. And so I was in year 11 at the time, so we held a year 11 and 12 cohort meeting. And so I stood up there in front of everyone and I was holding my best friend's hand and I was crying and crying, and I said, I'm pregnant and please don't think badly of me. I wanted to tell you how it is. This is how it is. This is what I'm going to do in the future. I'm going to come to school. I'm not going to wear my school uniform anymore. And I'd really appreciate it if you could support me, not tell rumours, not spread it around and things like this. And that was the turning point for me. That was the point where the whole school, the year 11s and 12s, came together and supported me. And without that moment, I don't know how I would have gone with all the rumours and all the gossip that was being spread and people from other schools finding out, and it was getting into this big drama and I couldn't deal with it. But they all supported me, and people I'd never spoken to before came up to me and said, Susan, you are so brave. Thank you for sharing your story. I support you. If there's anything I can do, I'll help you as best as I can. And I was really shocked, and I was really happy at the time, and because a girl at my school had fallen pregnant about 8 years before me. That was the last time they'd had a pregnant girl at school. And she'd had parents come to the principal and tell them she needed to be kicked out of the school, that this was a disgrace. And although the school didn't kick her out, and she got on with it and she did all right as well, that didn't happen to me. And I wonder if it's because I had such great support from my friends and my family. So it was wonderful. So the only people that weren't very supportive of me was the general public. Going out into the community, going to the supermarket, going clothes shopping, all those sorts of things, going out with my friends, I just got dirty looks and people staring at me all the time, and it got to a point where I didn't really want to go out anymore, so I just stayed at home and went to school, and that was about it. So Mabel was born, my little girl, on the 21st of October 2013. She just had her 3rd birthday, lots of fun and games. And I spent the next 3 months with her at home. I timed it pretty well, obviously, and had the summer holidays to look after her, and that was really great. Getting to bond with her and spending that time was just so important. And I was breastfeeding as well, so I wanted to keep that up. And then in February I went back to school, and the school were really great. I did only 2 subjects at school, and I did a thing called a student-directed inquiry, which was like a project you could do at home and at school, but you didn't have classes, so it worked really well with my schedule. And I actually did that on being a teenage mum, and I did some research and some surveys and things like that on teenage mums, and it was really interesting. So I went back to school and tried to time it so I could come home and feed her and then go back to school, and it was all very logistics and organised. She had to go to daycare 1 day a week, which she loved, so it wasn't such a bad thing. And I also had a friend's mum who helped me out occasionally when I needed an extra pair of hands to look after the baby. So I went on and I finished school, and I even made it onto the honours roll for TCE students. So that was my goal, and I did it, and I was really happy. And I went up there on the stage. We had to go up on a stage and say what we were going to do next year. And I took Mabel with me. Not that they said I could, but I did it anyway. And got up on the stage and told them, you know, if no matter what challenges you have in life, you can do whatever you want to do. And I hope, you know, for the people who were sitting in front of me at that stage, and then all the young people, I hope that they took that and have done what they want to do in life. So after I finished school, I moved out of home with Lachlan and Mabel, and we started our own little life by ourselves, which was a bit scary. And then the following year I went to uni. I decided I wanted to just keep going. I wasn't going to stop because I'll probably never go back if I'll enjoy the freedom too much. So I went to uni, and I'm currently studying a Bachelor of Primary Education. I've literally yesterday finished my exam for my Bachelor of Primary Education. So I've just finished second year, so I'll be third year next year, 2 more years to go. And I'm loving it. It's fantastic. It's so rewarding. It's exactly what I want to do. I'm so focused on education and how important it is, and I'm loving that I'm able to share that with other people now. So I've recently just been shortlisted for a New Colombo Plan scholarship, and this scholarship is run by the Australian government, and it will enable me to be able to travel to somewhere in the Indo-Pacific region, and I've selected Hong Kong to study for up to a year and do an internship and some language training, and yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it. I got to go to Canberra just recently for an interview. Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I might get that, and then so Locke, Mabel and I will be moving to Hong Kong, which might be a bit exciting and a bit scary all at the same time, but yeah, so we'll see what happens. But it's, yeah, things have really taken off, and yeah. And I'm also getting married in 5 weeks and counting. So yeah. So I came into the Brave Foundation when I read Bernie's book just after Mabel was born, actually, Brave Little Bear. I've got a copy just here, if you want to have a look afterwards. And I read it, and while I was going to go on and finish my education, that was my plan, you know, I'd never heard of any other teenage mums finishing their education. I didn't even know any teenage mums, to be quite honest. And so I read Bernie's book, and it just made me think, it just gave me that hope that everything's going to be okay, and I'm going to get through this, and other people have done it. And that's what I needed at that point in time, when all I really wanted to do was be at home with Mabel, was to say, no, this is what I need to do. Look how, you know, fantastic Bernie is, and, you know, she's done so well for herself, and that's all based on the fact that she had that drive to go and finish her education. So Brave's been fantastic to me. They've been so supportive, and they've given me so many opportunities to share my story, and they've supported me as well. And when we were trying to rent a house, we found it incredibly difficult. That was probably one of the most stressful things I've done since having Mabel, trying to find a house. Because on paper, you see 2 young people who have a child, and they want to move into a house for the first time. Well, that doesn't look very good, does it? Not in this day and age. People judge you, and that's how it is. And so I ended up getting a reference from Bernadette. She wrote me one, and you know, saying how wonderful we were, and I took in this big wad of paper to the real estate agents with photos of us and everything I'd done, and handed it to them. Here, this is who we are. Give us a house, and it worked. So that was good. So Brave's fantastic, and they've done so many amazing things, and I really wish that their Brave Packs, which they're developing at the moment, had been available to my school at the time, because while my school did everything they could, they really didn't know how to tackle it at the start, and it was really difficult. And so having that support from an outside organisation is really necessary in our community. So. Now we're going to do a little bit of reading now, so I do apologise. So in 2009, the Brave Foundation was founded by our now CEO, Bernadette Black. It was founded as a result of the launch of her book, Brave Little Bear, after Bernie found that she had lots of girls from all over Australia contacting her and emailing her and asking her for information on education and support services in their local areas. So the former Tasmanian Premier, the Honourable David Bartlett, who was a child to a teenage mother himself, is the chair of the Brave Foundation, and he leads a board of 7 committed skills-based directors. So the Brave Foundation was launched nationally by the Honourable Jeff Kennett in November last year, and since then we've been establishing mutual links with Beyond Blue with a national depression initiative. And this is a great cause for us, as statistically pregnant and parenting teens have a high incidence of depression. So the Brave Foundation is the first and only national platform building a village of acceptance and supporting 24,000 teenagers per year across Australia facing teenage pregnancy and parenthood. Pregnant and parenting teens are less likely to complete high school. Evidence suggests that only 5% remain engaged. They're also less likely to commence or complete tertiary education, with some 2.3 entering the tertiary education sector. And children of teenage mothers are less likely to commence or complete secondary or tertiary education. 80% of teen mothers receive income support, and 80% of those teenage mothers receive the same income support 7 years later. And according to the Australian Department of Social Services, the lifetime cost of welfare dependence per individual is approximately $16 million. So pregnant and parenting teens demonstrate higher risks of complicated pregnancies, low birth weight babies, premature babies, postnatal depression, generational teen pregnancies, and domestic violence. Currently, there's an absence of education, pathway plans, and policy acceptance for the pregnant and parenting teen in secondary education. Brave Foundation is working to dramatically reduce these figures, providing much needed support to the pregnant and parenting teens right across Australia. This includes providing scholarships. Oh, I always forget to click the next one. Here we go. Providing scholarships to help the pregnant and parenting teen in finishing education. Pregnant and parenting teens who do go on to finish their education are more likely to complete their tertiary education and ultimately break the cycle of intergenerational poverty and welfare dependence. So, the Foundation's primary aim is to help pregnant and parenting teens find support and continue their education by being aware of and accessing education and support services in their local communities. Onward, Brave assists local services and secondary schools with resources and education plans that provide a structure and benchmark to assist in retaining the pregnant and parenting teens in education. So we have recently established a pregnant and parenting teen support and education working group to establish a strategy to retain pregnant and parenting teens in secondary school education. This will include development of policy standards and individualised education pathway plans for the pregnant and parenting teen. The working group will be facilitated by the Brave Foundation's chair, the Honourable David Bartlett. The working group is made up of various stakeholders, including the state government, education, health and community service representatives. The strategy is important for Tasmania as we currently have the second highest rate of teenage pregnancy per year in Australia, with some 350 teenage pregnancies per year. So the Brave Foundation's working group will include the following objectives: to further detail the policy standard, creating a national policy standard for secondary schools in order to support pregnant and parenting teens to complete school. Developing support and education pathway plans specific to the pregnant and parenting teen. Identifying additional recommendations for the education community sector that retain the pregnant and parenting teen in education over time. And finally, to investigate methods that will aid in changing the culture in our secondary schools and communities to one of inclusion of the pregnant and parenting teen. After the development of the recommendations, the Brave Foundation will be creating resources and information packs aimed at retaining the pregnant and parenting teen in education. These Brave Packs will be distributed statewide in both hard copy and electronic formats to all secondary schools and colleges in the 41 community support centres that Brave Foundation lists on its directory of services across Tasmania. The hope is that this, along with a consultancy briefing about the Brave Packs, will aid schools and organisations in providing much needed support to pregnant and parenting teens, reducing stigma and promoting cultural change. Pregnant and parenting teens experience a high level of stigma and disapproval in their communities. Alienation from their peers and family, having a direct and detrimental effect on pregnant and parenting teens' self-esteem and worth. Stigma reduces their willingness to access education and services, despite aspirations of high hopes and dreams for their families and careers. Community distractions of the choice debate and glamorisation of teen pregnancy diminishes the efforts to provide support to a growing 350 young people yearly in Tasmania. Education is, in my opinion, the ultimate key to success, and everyone has the right to an education, no matter their circumstances. It is important that the community rallies around teenage parents and to support them rather than forcing them into a life of adversity. I often get comments about how inspirational someone thinks I am and that what I'm doing in gaining an education is incredibly honourable. And I often wonder whether I would still receive these comments if I wasn't a teenage mother. However, I don't believe what I'm doing is particularly honourable or noteworthy, and rather I'm doing what any teenage mother would do given the right level of support, acceptance and opportunities that I have been lucky enough to have. The Brave Foundation aims to ensure that all pregnant and parenting teens have the same opportunities for education as any other teenager, and this is why their presence is so important. So I'm going to leave you all with a challenge, and my challenge is to, if you see a young mother out in the community, to just give her a smile, because it's so important to know that there are people out there that do care and do understand and accept your situation. So thank you so much for listening to me today. I really appreciate the opportunity. But we do have time for any questions, if you've got any questions. If I can't answer your question, I'm happy to pass it on to Bernadette and get back to you as well. So if there's any questions.
How many dads are involved with Brave?
How many dads?
Yeah, like teenage dads.
That's a really good question. Well, they kind of come along with their partners, I suppose. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'll have to ask Bernadette for you. But I don't think there are any teenage dads who are part of Brave by themselves that I know of. But I definitely think it's something we're going into. If you go onto their website, it's a great website. They've got lots of support, and there's support on there for teenage dads as well. And you can read other teenage dads' stories, and that will help as well. But it's predominantly aimed at teenage mothers. Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned in your meeting with the school that you weren't wearing your uniform anymore, that you told everyone. Was that pressure from the school, or was that your own choice?
So it was the school's decision for me not to wear my uniform. They told me they didn't want me to wear my uniform because my belly would be growing, and school uniforms are not made to accommodate growing bellies. That was the reason. I'll leave it up to your interpretation as to whether you think that's the only reason. I stopped wearing my uniform from when I was 12 weeks, and I wasn't really showing until I was probably about 25 weeks pregnant, I'd say. Only a little bit. So I could have probably still worn my uniform for a little while longer, and it did make me feel a little bit like an outcast, I suppose. And it was difficult, but at the same time it was winter and I could wear my puffer jacket and everyone else was cold. So there were pluses and minuses, but it worked out okay in the end. Yeah. Any more questions?
I'm not sure how it works. Like saying that there's no teenage dads involved, if one presented, would the involvement be invited?
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
definitely, yes.
Yeah.
It's just you don't get a lot of teenage dads who are ready for that. Look, I have no idea. I'm not sure. I'm sure there probably would be. But what I have found from my experiences with talking to other teenage mums is that the father of the baby doesn't often stick around. So it's often left up to the mum to support the child, and unfortunately that's just how it is. I'm one of the lucky few, and Mabel's daddy is still with me and supportive as ever. He's a fantastic housewife. So we'll keep him. Yeah. Any more questions?
You talk about, I know I was just reading the book about and it talks about volunteering on the back, the information about volunteering. So what sort of volunteers does the organisation, or how does
and all sort of different volunteers. So obviously if you have experience with teenage parents or support services and things like that, you can volunteer as I can't think of what it's called, a support person in your community that's related to the Brave Foundation. So the Brave Foundation will help you with information and support as well. And like me, I go out and tell my story quite often. I'm doing things, media things, and then also our working groups, and they're all volunteer based, the majority volunteer based, so there's lots of different opportunities for volunteers. Again, if you jump onto the website, it'll tell you there's a I want to volunteer section, and you can jump on there and have a look, or I can ask Bernadette and get back to you as well. Yeah.
Susan, where do you get funding from?
For me?
Yeah, for the program.
For Brave? Donations. Yeah, donations. That's how we get our funding. Yeah, that's what I know. I'm not 100% sure, but at the moment, yes, donations. Yeah.
So do you receive any government support at all?
I'm not sure, and I'm being filmed, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer. Bernadette might get grumpy. No, she would never get grumpy. I'm not sure, but I will definitely find out, and I can get back to you. I can pass that on. Yeah. Any more questions? Is there anyone here that? Oh, you go.
Support while you're studying.
Yeah.
So just while you're studying. So like, if you just left grade 12 and you go to uni, is that where?
No. Well, the Braves can still support you while you're going through tertiary education, but at the moment they're aiming at secondary educations and trying to get scholarships out there to girls. So if you do know of anyone who is a teenage parent and in secondary school, you can jump onto the Brave website and fill in an application form for a $5,000 scholarship. So that's on there. So there's an application form to fill in and some details. And yeah, so that's what we're trying to do at the moment, is focus on that. But yes, you still can get support to go into tertiary education, definitely, yeah. Any more questions? Is there anyone here that has experience with teenage parents or knows teenage parents? Yeah, yeah. I was just interested. Yeah, that's good. Wonderful.
They all know that the ones that I've worked with, they're all very passionate about Bernadette and her story.
Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful to hear, yeah. Because for me, I didn't know about her until after I'd had Mabel. And I would have loved to have known about her before. And I got into contact with her because I thought, oh, I'll send her an email a couple of months later after I read the book, and not really thinking that she would reply to my email, because she's sort of like a celebrity, isn't she? Like at the time, I think she was running for the Liberal Party to, what's it called? To go to Canberra, I can't think. So she was running for that, and then she'd written her book, and she'd just won Bernardo's Mother of the Year as well. So I was like, oh, she won't reply. But she did, and she was so enthusiastic. So I definitely encourage them to get in contact with Brave, because we're always looking for people and more teenage parents, and if we can get them all on board to support others, that's just fantastic. Because you just want to hear other people's experiences. You just want to know, if all these people have done it, then I can do it too. And that's what you want to hear. So, yeah.
This is a tricky question, and I don't know any other way of asking other than just asking. And you may not know the answer. But I work with teenage girls. I work in a high school. And it worries me the amount of, early sexual activity that they have. And I think we need to do a lot more around prevention and safe sex and contraception, etc.
Yep.
Can't solve that in here. Do you think girls make a deliberate choice to be pregnant, or do you think mostly it's accident?
For me, it was an accident. I definitely think that understanding about sexual health and condoms and contraception and all that sort of stuff really needs to be pushed more. I only had, in my time at high school, one sex education class with a male teacher, and it was incredibly awkward because we were all 14-year-old girls and we did not want to hear it from a male, as you can imagine, and at the time we didn't want to hear it at all. So I definitely agree with you that we need more. We need more support. From my experiences, that I have spoken to other young mums, they a majority of them are accident, not understanding how the pill works. That's a big one, I think. And so I'm not really sure. I mean, they're probably, I know there are girls out there that do fall pregnant deliberately, and I've met some of those. And that's...
Deliberate's probably a wrong word, like planned.
Planned, yes. Yes. Yeah, so, and they want to have a baby, and that's their choice, and they think that that's going to make their life wonderful, and that they can dress it up and make it look pretty and all of those sorts of things. But I also think that there are a lot of girls out there who do have abortions because they fell pregnant accidentally, and there are hundreds and hundreds that we will never know about. And I've spoken to a number of girls who have fallen pregnant and have had abortions, and you know, you just wouldn't understand the numbers. It is crazy. So there definitely needs to be more support contraception wise in schools. I think leaving it up to the parents isn't always the best idea in this day and age.
Yeah. If you could go back to your old school now, what would be the biggest thing that you wish they'd done differently when you were there pregnant with Mabel?
That's a good question. Put me on the spot. I think probably just a bit more support from my teachers. They were really good and they helped, but they sometimes I couldn't get to class for different reasons, and they were kind of like, oh no, you need to be there because this is going to be a really important class. So maybe just and there were a couple of times where it only happened a handful of times where I had no one to look after Mabel, and you know, for whatever reason, Locke had a meeting, or my mum had to go to work last minute and things like that, and I said, you know, is it okay if I just bring Mabel into class for half an hour? She's only a baby, she'll sleep anyway. And the answer was flat out no, it's not ever to happen. So maybe some more things like that would have been really good, just to be a little bit more flexible with my situation. I understand that having a child in the class is distracting for the other students, and you know, and when it cries and carries on and all that sort of stuff, that is, and it does affect the teaching and the learning of the students. But just being a little bit more flexible when things come up, so the student doesn't have to miss out, would be really good, in my opinion. Yeah. Any more questions? I think we will have to finish up now because you have another meeting to go to in 5 minutes. I didn't think I'd make it through the whole time. Yeah. So thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah.